Algeria's military spending has surged dramatically over the past 5 years, more than doubling from $9.7 billion in 2020 to an estimated $21.8 billion in 2024. This growth has made Algeria the largest defense spender in Africa. Here is a graph showing the annual military spending for Algeria since 2020. 2020, 2021, and 2022 saw Algeria spend $9.7, $9.1, and $9.15 billion respectively. That figure jumped to $21 to $22 billion in 2024. For context, here is a comparison of Morocco's military spending with Algeria's over the same 5-year period. While both countries have seen increased military budgets over the last several years, Algeria's spending has outpaced Morocco's by a significant margin. The gap widened considerably in 2023 and 2024, with Algeria spending 4 times more than Morocco in 2024. But what could be the driver behind this crazy military buildup in North Africa? To answer this question, we need to look at this 1,500 kilometers line that cuts across the desert between these two North African countries. For the last 30 years, no one has been allowed to cross it, not legally, not for trade, not even to visit family. It is one of the few borders in the world that has been completely sealed for decades. But this isn't just any border. It is one that reminds the people living here of a scar, one carved by colonial maps, buried walls, and politics. Lately, that scar is starting to bleed again, and the question on the lips of many is, how did we get here? This is the story of the Western Sahara dispute, a conflict that is threatening to bring Algeria and Morocco into direct confrontation. The story begins with two nations emerging from colonial rule on different parts. For more than a century, France ruled Algeria as a colony, drawing borders that served Paris more than anyone living here. Meanwhile, Morocco was split between French and Spanish zones until its independence in 1956. Two different colonial projects, two different administrative logics, and a mess waiting to happen once both became free. You see, when Algeria finally won independence in 1962, both countries were broke, bruised, and eager to define themselves. But then, something happened. When the new leaders decided to put their maps side by side, they discovered that the borders didn't line up. You see, France had never clearly demarcated the boundary between French Algeria and the Moroccan Protectorate, leaving Morocco with a redemptive claim on territories like Tindouf and Bekaa in Algeria that it considered historically part of the Moroccan Sultan's domain. Despite shared bonds of language, religion, and culture, the newly sovereign neighbors quickly found themselves at odds. What started as a technical dispute quickly turned emotional, whose map was legitimate. By 1963, these brewing tensions boiled over. Morocco and Algerian troops clashed in what would be called the Sand War.
The war is being fought here, in the Western Sahara, in what seems to be a wasteland.
But while this war lasted only a few weeks, it set the tone for the next 60 years. Algeria accused Morocco of expansionism. Morocco accused Algeria of ingratitude. Cairo and the newly formed African Union rushed to broker peace. A ceasefire was signed, but the mistrust never left. Each side started quietly building an army, watching the other from across the vast empty desert. For the rest of the decade, the two governments made polite speeches about Maghreb unity. They signed treaties in 1969 and 1972, formally demarcating the border and affirming good neighborly relations. But behind closed doors, they were digging trenches, literally and politically. Border villages were evacuated. Smuggling routes turned into militarized zones, and in the distance, a new crisis was forming, one that would reignite animosity and overshadow all efforts at unity.
The Sahrawis, the indigenous people of the Western Sahara, are fighting against Morocco for their independence.
It was the mid-70s. Spain's dictator Francisco Franco was dying, and Spain had a colony it no longer wanted. It was called Western Sahara, a massive stretch of Atlantic coast and desert, sparsely populated but rich in phosphate and fishing waters. For decades, Madrid had mined its phosphate, fished its coast, and largely ignored the desert tribes who called it home. So, when General Franco finally died in 1975, Spain began its own transition. The new government wanted out, and fast. In a flash, Madrid announced withdrawal from Western Sahara. There were no plans for what would happen to its people. Morocco saw this as an opportunity. King Hassan II would quickly declare the territory as historically Moroccan, a missing piece of his kingdom. He soon organized what he called the Green March. 350,000 Moroccan civilians walked south into the territory, carrying flags and Qurans, claiming the territory as Moroccan. It was peaceful, it was massive, and it worked. Spain signed the Madrid Accords, effectively handing control to Morocco and Mauritania. But there was just this one problem. Remember the people who actually lived here? Yeah, they are not just some nameless tribe. They are the Sahrawis, and they weren't consulted. The Sahrawis had their own plan. They wanted independence, and they were ready to fight for it. Algeria, meanwhile, had been watching, and they saw something bigger than a mere territorial dispute. They saw a chance to contain Morocco's growing influence in the region, a chance to push back against a monarchy they viewed as pro-Western and expansionist. This gave birth to a rebel group called the Polisario Front.
The Western Sahara independence movement, the Polisario Front, says it would be ready to accept an autonomy plan proposed by Morocco.
The newly formed rebel group, backed by Algeria, soon declared the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, SADR, a government in exile. They started fighting. A fight that had the full backing of the Algerian government. Arms, maps, recognition, whatever the Polisario Front wanted, the Algerian government provided. Morocco called it terrorism. Algeria called it self-determination. And while I can't tell you which side is right or wrong, let me take you to Tindouf, Algeria. It is a city near the border, in the middle of the Hamada Desert. And just outside are these 5 refugee camps. They've been there since 1975. Families fled the fighting in Western Sahara and ended up here. Temporary shelters that became more permanent as the years rolled by. Today, an estimated 90,000 to 173,000 people live here. That is 3 generations born in limbo. More than 50 years of waiting for a self-determination that never comes. No passport, no country, just endless waiting. By 1976, Morocco and Algeria had again broken off diplomatic relations after Algiers formally recognized the SADR proclaimed by Polisario. For Morocco, Western Sahara was portrayed as an integral part of the kingdom, the southern provinces, necessary for its territorial completeness and rich in phosphate resources and Atlantic fisheries. For Algeria, Western Sahara represented an anti-colonial struggle and a means to check Moroccan hegemonic aspirations. Algerian leaders often insisted their support for Polisario was principled, not territorial. Algeria has no claim to Western Sahara but views Morocco's annexation as illegitimate. These stances have fueled the decades-long proxy war in this region of Africa. From 1975 to 1991, Western Sahara was a battleground. Morocco sent troops, Algeria sent the Polisario weapons, refuge, and diplomatic support. Tens of thousands of Sahrawi refugees fled the fighting and settled in camps around Tindouf, Algeria. This is how we came about these camps right here. Morocco eventually gained control of roughly 80% of the territory. In the 1980s, they built a sand berm, a wall 2,700 kilometers long. Minefields, sensors, patrols, it divided the territory. Morocco controlled the west, where the cities and resources are. Polisario and, by extension, Algeria controlled the barren east. This eventually became a frozen war in the desert. In 1991, the UN got involved and managed to broker a ceasefire deal, one that involves deploying peacekeepers. Along with this came a promise of an independence referendum for the Sahrawis. The idea was to let the Sahrawis vote on independence or integration with Morocco. But Morocco and the Polisario couldn't agree on who gets to vote. So the referendum never happened. The result is a protracted stalemate that continues to fuel Algerian-Moroccan animosity to this day. Now, here's where this story gets complicated. Underneath this desert battle was something deeper, a clash of political identities. Algeria was a revolutionary republic forged in a socialist, anti-imperialist struggle. Their propaganda mirrored the Cold War itself. Morocco's press called the Polisario Soviet-backed militants. Algeria's newspaper described Morocco as America's pawn in North Africa. Each capital broadcast its own version of truth. And for millions of North Africans, reality depended on which side of the border you listened from. The Western Sahara dispute also internationalized the rivalry. In 1984, the African Union's predecessor, that is the OAU, admitted SADR as a member, prompting Morocco to withdraw from the Pan-African body in protest. This left Algeria as the Maghreb's voice in the OAU for decades. Morocco only rejoined the African Union in 2017 after a 33-year absence, with the apparent intent of pushing its Western Sahara position from within. The battle for African and international recognition of Western Sahara became a diplomatic chess match. Dozens of countries recognized the SADR in the 1980s, under Algerian influence. But in recent years, Morocco has convinced many to retract recognition or to open consulates in Western Sahara as a sign of support for Moroccan sovereignty. By the 1990s, the relationship between Algeria and Morocco was beyond repair. But there was hope for reconciliation. For a while, it looked like tension might finally cool, especially with the Cold War coming to an end. Trade between the two countries began to rise again. In 1994, Marrakesh hosted a Maghreb Economic Summit. There was cautious optimism. And then, a terrorist attack at a hotel reignited suspicion once again, and everything grinded to a halt.
A massive explosion has ripped through a busy cafe in the Moroccan city of Marrakesh, killing at least 15 people and wounding 20 others.
Morocco accused Algerian militants of involvement and imposed visa restrictions. Algeria responded by closing the land border entirely. That border has stayed shut ever since then. What started as a fight over Western Sahara soon became a fight over everything. You see, the 21st century came with new resources and new alliances. Relationships built on gas, pipelines, and global politics. Factors that soon introduced a new layer to the Algeria-Morocco relations. Algeria has the 11th largest proven gas reserves in the world, and for decades it has been one of Europe's lifelines. Morocco, well, not so lucky. It sits upstream, dependent on Algerian supply lines that cut straight across its territory. For years, that interdependence kept both sides civil, at least on paper. But in geopolitics, money and energy are rarely neutral, and when oil prices rose in the 2000s, so did national pride. Each country wanted to prove it could power and not depend on the region. In 1996, the Maghreb-Europe gas pipeline came online. It started deep in Algeria's Hassi R'Mel fields, snaked across Moroccan soil, and dove under the Strait of Gibraltar to Spain. For every cubic meters of gas that crossed, Morocco earned a transit fee and a quiet piece of leverage. It was one of the few places where corporations seemed to work. Moroccan technicians maintained compressor stations. Algerian engineers monitored pressure from afar. It looked briefly like pragmatism could trump politics. But then, the old rivalry crept right back. Every maintenance negotiation became a diplomatic chess match. By 2018, trade forums had stalled, ambassadors had stopped smiling for photo ops, and news anchors were openly speculating about the next rupture. November 13, 2020. A remote crossing called Guerguerat, where the Moroccan-controlled part of Western Sahara meets Mauritania. Polisario fighters had been blocking a road there for weeks, stopping trucks from moving between Morocco and West Africa. Morocco sent troops to reopen it. The Polisario said Morocco violated the ceasefire, and then on November 13th, the Polisario Front officially abandoned the 1991 ceasefire and declared war. Not metaphorical war, actual armed conflict. After nearly 30 years of frozen tension, Western Sahara was hot again. 3 weeks later, Donald Trump made a phone call. On December 10, 2020, the United States recognized Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. In exchange, Morocco normalized relations with Israel as part of the Abraham Accords. For Morocco, this was the diplomatic victory of a lifetime. The world's most powerful country had just endorsed its position on the one issue that defined its foreign policy. And it opened the door to Israeli technology, intelligence, and military hardware. For Algeria, this was betrayal. Algeria's foreign ministry called it foreign maneuvers aimed at destabilizing the region. But it was worse than that. Morocco wasn't just winning diplomatically, it was building an alliance with Israel right on Algeria's doorstep. Israeli drones, Israeli missiles, Israeli surveillance systems. Some reports suggested Israeli intelligence was helping Morocco monitor Algerian officials. And then came the Pegasus scandal.
Probably the most advanced piece of spyware ever developed.
The parliament will hear from activists on claims that Morocco had spied on politicians and journalists.
It is effectively the most invasive form of surveillance imaginable. It's called Pegasus.
In July 2021, investigative journalists revealed that Moroccan authorities had allegedly used Israeli-made Pegasus spyware to target Algerian officials, journalists, and activists. Morocco denied it, of course, but the damage was already done. Algerian state media accused Morocco of obsessive surveillance and working with foreign intelligence to undermine Algeria. Then Morocco went further. In July 2021, Morocco's UN envoy suggested subtly but unmistakably that Algeria's Kabylie region, home to a Berber-speaking minority with some separatist sentiment, deserved self-determination. This was tit for tat. You support Sahrawi independence, we will talk about Kabylie independence. For Algeria, this crossed a red line. Within days, Algeria recalled its ambassador from Rabat. That same summer, devastating forest fires swept through northern Algeria. About 100 people died. Algerian officials blamed the MAK, a Kabylie separatist group, and accused Morocco of supporting them. There was no hard evidence. But in the atmosphere of 2021, evidence didn't matter. Algerian families watching their homes burn heard government statements blaming hostile neighbors. On August 18, 2021, Algeria's Presidential Security Council announced it would, quote, review relations with Morocco due to successive hostile acts. 6 days later, the country's foreign minister made it official. Algeria was severing diplomatic ties with Morocco. Embassies closed. Diplomats went home. Direct flights were banned. For the first time since independence, the two countries had no formal communication. Then, in late 2021, came an incident neither side will fully confirm. Algeria accused Morocco of killing 3 Algerian truck drivers in Western Sahara with a drone strike. Morocco never confirmed or denied it, but Algeria warned Algerian lives will not be taken without consequences. By the end of 2021, 2 things were clear. The cold peace was over, and both sides were preparing for something worse. October 31, 2021. Algeria decided to turn to the one leverage it believed it had over Morocco: the Maghreb-Europe gas pipeline. The government decided not to renew the pipeline agreement. For decades, this pipeline had carried Algerian natural gas through Morocco to Spain. Morocco earned transit fees. Spain got energy, everyone benefited. But after Algeria cut diplomatic ties, it decided to cut the gas too. Overnight, Morocco lost its Algerian gas supply, about 10% of its electricity generation. Algeria rerouted everything through an undersea pipeline, avoiding Moroccan territory entirely. Once the gas stopped flowing through Morocco, the kingdom lost millions of dollars in transit fees. On Moroccan TV, analysts called it economic warfare. Across the border, Algerian commentators called it strategic sovereignty. The symbolism was unmistakable. The same pipeline that once connected them now divided them again. You see, energy isn't just a commodity, it is a currency of influence. When Europe began searching for non-Russian gas after 2022, Algeria's stock rose overnight. European diplomats flew to Algiers, offering new contracts and soft words. Suddenly, Algeria had options and attention. Meanwhile, Morocco pivoted fast, signing LNG deals with Nigeria and Britain, and exploring Atlantic gas fields of its own. Both governments started framing their projects as national survival. But there was a quiet irony. The pipelines that could have unified North Africa into an energy corridor became fault lines instead. And while gas was being weaponized, both countries started buying weapons at an unprecedented rate. Algeria's defense budget went from $9 billion in 2021 to $22 billion in 2024. Morocco couldn't match that. Its 2023 budget was about $5.2 billion, but it focused on quality over quantity. Now, here's what they are buying with these crazy sums. Algeria invested in advanced Russian fighter jets, possibly including the Su-57 stealth fighter, Iskander ballistic missiles, Chinese combat drones, S-400 air defense systems. Morocco purchased American F-16 fighter jets, Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drones, the kind used in Ukraine and Nagorno-Karabakh, Israeli Heron reconnaissance drones, Israeli Barak MX missile defense systems, plans to manufacture Israeli drones on Moroccan soil. This isn't defensive posturing. These are all offensive capabilities. And then there are the alliances. The arms purchases tell you everything about who is backing whom. Morocco is firmly in the US, Israeli, and Western camp, while Algeria is deepening its ties with Russia, China, and Iran. In November 2022, Russia and Algeria conducted joint military exercises on Algerian soil, reportedly near the Moroccan border. European and American officials were alarmed. Russia, still reeling from sanctions over Ukraine, was projecting military power in North Africa, and Algeria was hosting it. By 2023, Western media had rediscovered the Maghreb rivalry. Headlines read, "North Africa's Cold War heats up." Policy institutes warned that Europe's new energy strategy was now hostage to North African politics. Even the African Union quietly urged restraints. But on social media, restraint was nowhere to be found. Algerian and Moroccan influencers traded memes, maps, and misinformation. Every border incident, even a misfired drone, sparked trending hashtags. It was an arms race online as much as on the ground. In April 2025, Algeria introduced a new law that sent shockwaves across the region. A general mobilization bill allowing the government to rapidly deploy military forces and requisition civilian resources in case of conflict. The law establishes a legal framework to transition the country from a peacetime to a wartime footing during a crisis. Moroccan media called it a war council. Algerian officials said it was about terrorism in the Sahel, but everyone knew what it was really about. Meanwhile, in Western Sahara, Morocco's new Turkish drones were changing the game. Precision strikes on Polisario positions, surveillance deep into the desert. Human rights groups reported that Sahrawi nomads were fleeing their camps, terrified of being caught in drone strikes. The Polisario, for its part, vowed to keep fighting. But the question is, for how long? The rivalry between Algeria and Morocco is a multi-layered contest that shows no signs of slowing down. While some will view the tension as historical, there are factions that see it as more ideological, territorial, and economic. What began as post-colonial squabbles over borders evolved into a profound geopolitical rift that has effectively split the Maghreb in two countries with legitimate grievances, locked in a rivalry neither fully controls. Morocco sees Western Sahara as non-negotiable. Algeria sees self-determination as sacred. Both are right, both are wrong, both refuse to compromise. And in the middle, refugees who have waited 50 years, families separated for 30, young people who want something different. The question isn't whether war is likely. Most experts say it's not. The costs are too high. The question is, what happens if they are wrong? What happens if one miscalculation, one drone, one border incident, one desperate leader tips the balance? Algeria and Morocco are, with no doubt, one mistake away from war. Maybe that mistake never comes. Maybe deterrence holds. Maybe diplomacy wins. Or maybe one day we wake up to news that the Cold War in North Africa just turned hot. And then we will ask, how did we not see this coming? The truth is, we did. We just didn't know if anyone was listening.
القبض يوم 11 في الشهر 8/79.
على العين وقاصدها ذيك اللحظة قاصدها لأن من خبطت عيني
وحكموا علي بالإعدام.
وعدلت ذنبت جات عيني في يدي ومنين وقفت قلت له عيني طاحت رد لي البول.
14 عام هذه كل ليلة ننتظر فيها تنفيذ الحكم.